Shelley Wade, host of the Goodness Factor podcast. As an antidote to the drumbeat of negative news we're inundated with on a daily basis, the Goodness Factor shines the spotlight on good news and good people doing good things. Each episode starts off with the Goodness Report, then we interview a do-gooder, and we end each episode by sharing a good word with you. Welcome to the Goodness Factor, where we report good news and shine the spotlight on good people doing good things. I'm your host, Shelley Wade. Coming up on the show today, we're going to talk about workplace bullying with workplace incivility expert and veteran TV executive Andy Regal. That's inside the Do-Gooder interview. Then we wrap up the episode with the good word. Let's get things started with the Goodness Report, where today we shine the spotlight on celebs who are doing wonderful things in their communities. In my hometown of Houston, rapper Trae the Truth, who's known for his philanthropy, continues his giving ways. He recently opened the first Truth's Do Good Closet in partnership with HISD, the Houston Independent School District, of which I am a proud product. The closet provides free clothes, food, and school supplies to students struggling with homelessness. And as if we didn't already love Bad Bunny enough, his Good Bunny Foundation has been expanding its role in healthcare. Beyond its core youth programs, the foundation has now directed over $100,000 specifically toward cancer patients through the DaVita campaign in Puerto Rico. Another celebrity do-gooder is John Cena, who recently reached a historic milestone, granting over 650 wishes for the Make-A-Wish Foundation. Cena remains the most requested celebrity in Make-A-Wish Foundation's history, often dropping all filming commitments to meet with children. And that's the Goodness Report. Time for the Do-Gooder interview. So I'm really excited to have this conversation with workplace incivility expert I've never known. I've never heard of that title before, so I'm excited to hear about this. The workplace incivility expert and veteran TV executive Andy Regal, who has a new book called Surviving Bully Culture, a career spent navigating workplace bullying and a guide for healing. Andy Regal, welcome.
Shelley, thank you so much. And I have to tell you, I never really wanted this role of being an incivility expert, but after 25 years in television, I became an expert on incivility and bullying. It happened to me almost my entire career.
Wow.
And I thought it was because I was in television. As I've researched this issue, so I have lived experience, but I've researched this issue, talked to literally thousands of bullying victims and dozens of worldwide experts. It happens in every industry. I don't care where you work. Media, of course, yes. Technology, healthcare, the legal profession, construction. Anywhere there are people at work, there are bullies at work.
The thing that surprised me, because I've actually gone through workplace bullying before. And the thing that surprised me is that I always think, because I consider myself such a mature person and I don't bully people. And so I'm thinking this is what children do. But you're saying that bullying persists long after childhood.
Well, let me tell you something, and I'm so sorry it happened to you. I have about a 98% response rate when I tell people what I'm doing these days. They're like, oh, I got to tell you what happened to me. There was zero tolerance for bullying in my kids' school district, and there was 100% tolerance of bullying in the places I worked. It doesn't end on the playground. It continues in the office. And let me, if I may, just give you my very brief definition of workplace bullying. It's very simple. It's targeted and repeated conduct that has no benefit to the business or the employee. That's it. I'm not advocating for everybody to be nice all the time. I was an executive producer for years, and I banged some tables. I raised my voice. I interrupted people. It was never, though, targeted at one person. It wasn't repeated behavior. And I'll tell you this, when I was wrong, when I was having low blood sugar, or I was being impatient or rude or whatever it might be, I always apologized. I worked for a bully boss for 6.5 years and made him millions of dollars. He never once apologized for all the scorn and threats that he poured on me.
So according to the Workplace Bullying Institute, again, never heard of that before, 50 million adult Americans experience workplace bullying. Why, Andy, why do we teach our children, we work so hard to teach our children that bullying is wrong, but then when we become adults, we are bullying as well?
Yeah, Shelley, it's simply an abuse of power. And I don't spend a lot of time diagnosing why people behave that way. My focus is on changing the workplace and also helping bullying victims deal, cope, and heal with what they've been through. Because, look, this all happened to me, and it happens to – I have a coaching business. I talk to people every day who have all these things happen to me, hypervigilance, anxiety, digestive problems, inability to sleep, and even harmful thoughts. People end up in the hospital. People end up having to go to psychiatrists. People end up having heart problems. Just to your point that it happened to you, bullies tend not to bully the people that are apathetic. They show up to work. It's the best, most devoted, loyal, and productive people that get bullied because those are the ones the bullies know will go back to work and try harder. So it's not the people that aren't the good employees. It's the best of employees that get bullied, which is why I'm so interested, because this can happen to anyone, any socioeconomic strata, any race, creed, color, gender preference, sexual preference, whatever it is. It can happen to anyone, which is why I love and am passionate about this work. But I will tell you that people of color are bullied more than the general population, and LGBTQI people are also bullied more than the general population. But anybody can be a bully, and anybody can be a victim.
Do you know why? Have your studies found why? I could venture a guess, but I'd like to hear what your thoughts are. Why African Americans and LGBTQ community are bullied more?
Because certainly people in positions of power tend to be different than those people. Not always, of course. So they abuse their power. And so people of color who are trying to move up in an organization are often kept down. We know this to be true.
Yeah.
But again, in my case, and I'll be very clear and honest about this, I am a privileged middle-aged white guy, but I was an executive producer for years and years. And the more I moved up the ring, the more it happened to me. So we need to stop this for everyone. And by the way, this is not a political issue. This is not a red or blue states issue. There are red-leaning bullies, blue-leaning bullies. And that's why, and I think we can do this in a very simple fashion, we can change it so that people aren't damaged and abused in the workplace, especially those that are most productive and care most about pleasing the boss, which I'm sure is the case with you and certainly was the case with me.
Listen, International Stand Up to Bullying Day is on February 27th. Which is why it's so timely to have you on, because what you're trying to do is change this bullying culture, and you're doing the good work of getting the word out about it and educating us about it through your new book. I want to know if you feel like women experience it more than men. What are your thoughts on that? What does your research tell you on that? And also, how do we go about lessening bullying in the workplace?
Thank you for asking all of those very pertinent questions. So first of all, men are 71% of the perpetrators.
Okay.
So yes, men are the worst bullies by far.
Okay.
But women do bully, and oftentimes women bully other women.
Oh, wow.
And so it does happen in that way.
Okay.
And that's why we need to get the word out, and what I want to do and why I care so much about this issue, because by virtue of just being on your show, what I want to be doing is creating dialogue and awareness and advocating for change. And we can do this. There's so many problems in the world that are so difficult to solve. I work with homeless in New York City with an organization called Urban Pathways. Different conversation, but that's not something that you can solve in the next day or two. Let me tell you this. Talk about businesses first and then employees. Businesses tomorrow, anybody who's involved in a senior position in a business, organization, corporation, can do this tomorrow. Create codes of conduct, Shelley, codes of behavior that tell people how they're supposed to comport themselves in the workplace. It's that simple. These are the way we're going to behave. It doesn't mean that you have to do it all the time, every day. We understand that. But this is what we expect of you. This is how we expect you to talk to your employees, your staff, and this is how we expect you to be civil in the workplace. And then if you're not, you need to remedy that. And if you don't, and this is where it's so important. A lot of companies have this kind of thing. It's got to have teeth, and there have to be ramifications for those that don't abide. So you get one chance, and they call you in, and you have to give human resources the autonomy and authority to follow through on this. HR departments are feckless because who pays their checks? Who signs their checks? The boss. Who is the bully? The boss. So HR departments can't do anything. So we need every company to create codes of conduct that everybody from the top down agrees they're going to abide by. And for those that can't or won't, they need to lose a bonus, they need to lose salary, or they need to leave the company. And that can be done tomorrow. And then let me tell you this about those of us that are bullying victims. There's so much of an abuse of power. And look, Shelley, you know this. Your audience knows this. Our boss controls our self-esteem, our ability to pay our bills, pay our mortgage, save for college. They control how popular we are at work. They control whether we get a bonus or salary bump, right? Mm-hmm. And so they have so much power over us, especially those of us that want to do a good job and care about our jobs. So here's what we can do. We often can't change the bully. We can't make them into our best friend or even make them nice or even make them good managers. What we can do, and this is something that I created called the 6 tenets of coping and healing. I know we don't have a lot of time, but I'll just go through it. What we need to do as bullying victims is not allow the bully to overtake us, to be renting space in our heads, not to be on our shoulder when we get home. And it happens. They take over our thoughts and our consciousness, and it ruins everything, our professional life and our personal lives. So this is what bullying victims must do. We have to restore psychological safety so you feel safe in your skin. Most people, if they're being bullied, don't believe that the bully boss has their best interests at heart. I had bully bosses that I felt not only didn't have my best interests at heart, but wanted to damage me and damage my career. Mm-hmm. We have to reestablish psychological safety. We have to reignite self-esteem. We have to rediscover purpose in work and life, because you lose your purpose, you lose your self-esteem. We have to be able to rejuvenate joy so that we can find joy in simple things, not things that are expensive, because a lot of times we're worried about losing our jobs, but we need to be able to still feel joy in life and keep our faith. And then 2 other quick things. We have to forgive ourselves, Shelley. So much of being a bullying victim is about feeling shame, that there's something wrong about us. Mm-hmm. I certainly felt all these things. Mm-hmm. If your audience takes anything away from what I'm saying, if they're bullying victims, no self-blame. In the history of the world, in the history of the workplace, nobody ever asked to be mistreated at work. And finally, forgiveness. Forgive yourself, and over time, forgive your bully, because they've got their own stuff. It's them, not you. So those are the things that we can change within ourselves so that the bullies don't ruin our lives and ruin our physical well-being.
And I will say this as well, Andy. I know when I went through workplace bullying, because we don't often talk about being bullied mm-hmm. as adults, because it feels a little embarrassing. And people don't want to come across as weak, saying that they've experienced it. But one thing that was important to me, especially at that time, my career was my life. And mm-hmm. I felt like if I made too much noise about it, it would negatively affect my career. It's kind of the same idea as when, we were going through the Me Too movement, where mm-hmm. you heard a lot of women say they didn't want to risk having a negative impact on their career, so they didn't say anything. So I think that this is probably what's going on with a lot of people with workplace bullying, too. They don't want to risk having a negative impact on their career. So I want to say that you're not weak because you went through it.
Oh, you're 1,000% correct.
Yes.
And we all do. I thought I was weak. I had so much shame as a man that I couldn't stand up to it. But I cared about my staff. I cared about my job. I had worked hard to get that job. And no, most of us can't confront the boss because it's just there's too much at stake and likely won't work. So No shame. You weren't weak. It was about the boss. No shame. And shame is an awful part because so many of our bully victim partners, we feel so alone. And that's why I'm here doing this work. You're not alone. There are now resources by virtue of dealing with this issue, which there never were when I was going through it.
And I just want to say also, and this is not me brown-nosing, but I am blessed to say that my boss, and none of my bosses are bullies, but some people do have, when I went through workplace bullying, it wasn't via a boss. It was by another powerful employee.
It can happen that way, too. It usually happens happens top down, but it can happen between colleagues. It can even happen with subservient people lower rung going up, but that's unusual. But I'm thrilled to hear that at your radio station, the people are civil and understanding and thoughtful and helpful. That's
it really is an
wonderful to hear.
amazing workplace. It really is. But
Great for you.
I love that you are doing this work, getting the word out about workplace bullying, and you not only getting the word out, but you have resolutions to it. Do you have a website where people can get more information?
Very simple, and thank you for asking. It's very simple. It's Andy Regal, ANDYREGAL.com. You can get my book there. If you're interested in connecting with me, we can do that. I have a coaching business, my book, Surviving Bully Culture, if you don't mind me mentioning, is available at Amazon and Barnes & Noble, and I'm doing this because it happened to me and I don't want it to happen to others. And I believe my book hopefully is about my story, but it's really about this broader issue where I interview experts. So it's not just my story, it's the story of all of us.
And Andy, I never got your background. Would you mind sharing where you were a television executive for our listeners?
Of course. I helped start Court TV,
wow.
Where we covered all the big trials, the William Kennedy Smith, O.J., Jeffrey Dahmer, it goes on and on, the Menendez brothers. So I worked and helped start Court TV. I was an executive producer at CNBC, at MSNBC, and I was global head of video at the Wall Street Journal. I was at the Wall Street Journal for 6 years. So I've had great experience at all those places. It was not about bullying every day, but it's about the specter of bullying. It's about wondering when it's going to happen again, and other places too. So I want people also not to look at it as a black and white issue, but to understand that this is part of the workplace and we can get through it together.
Well, thank you so much for blessing us with your presence. Workplace incivility expert and veteran TV executive Andy Regal, and book author of the new book, Surviving Bully Culture, a career spent navigating workplace bullying and a guide for healing. Andy Regal, thank you for stopping by.
Thank you, Shelley. Love being with you.
And that's the Do-Gooder interview. Time for the good word. The good word I want to share today is that sometimes it's just the little things. Oftentimes we feel like to uplift someone or to make someone's day, we have to make this huge sweeping gesture. Sometimes it's just the little things. The other day, I received notification from my building that I had received a package. They send me an email and they text me, "You received a package." And I was like, I didn't order a package. So I thought it was a mistake, thinking that when I got home from work that I'd check and I'd have a package that belonged to maybe one of my neighbors. But I looked at the package and sure enough, it said Shelley Wade. And so I'm like, why do I have a package? And so I get to the apartment and I sit the package down, and I wasn't expecting a package, so I wasn't in any rush to open it up. As a matter of fact, it just sat there for a few hours. And then I was a little curious, and I finally opened it up a few hours later, and it was a small Galentine's gift from my friend Cheryl. Shout out to my dear friend Cheryl Duncan. Of course, Galentine's originated from Parks and Rec. I think it was maybe 2017 when it started. But the idea is, you are going to celebrate before Valentine's. Some people think it's the week before Valentine's Day, but it's actually the day before Valentine's Day. But you get together and celebrate, your female friendships, your platonic friendships, and it's Galentine's, your gals. And so Cheryl sent me a Galentine's gift. It was a small gift, but just a gesture. I wasn't even expecting it. I thought it was the sweetest thing, and it made my day. So sometimes it's just the little things. You don't have to do a big sweeping gesture to make someone's day. And that's the good word. And that wraps up episode 3, season 4 of The Goodness Factor. Thanks once again to our guest, workplace civility expert and veteran TV executive, Andy Regal. Thank you, Andy, for, all the work you're doing to make the workplace a better place by calling attention to the fact that there are adults out here bullying in the workplace, and you have a resolution to it as well. So thank you for stopping by The Goodness Factor. And I want to hear everyone's good news stories. If you have a good news story, what good has happened to you in your life lately. Maybe you got married, maybe you graduated, maybe you got a raise, maybe you're just happy to be alive. I'd love to hear your good news. Share it with me and the world. You can record a voice note in your phone and DM it to me, or you can record a video of yourself sharing your good news with us all. Of course, record it in landscape and DM it to me either on Facebook or on Instagram. The Goodness Factor with Shelley Wade on Facebook. DM me there. And you can DM your file also to at The Goodness Factor on Instagram. And who knows, you may end up on next week's episode of the podcast or a future episode of the podcast. Be sure, if you haven't already, subscribe on YouTube, and you can listen to and subscribe to the OG audio version of the podcast wherever you get your podcasts. And listen, if any part of the show today uplifted you or educated you or even made you smile, be sure to text the link to the podcast to someone else you think needs to be lifted. Love you so much for taking the time to watch, and I will talk to you next episode. Don't forget, kindness is difficult to give away because it keeps coming back. Love you. Mwah.